excited to have so many of you here. You have no idea how much it means to us for you to give up your Sunday afternoon to join us. And we have a historical thing going on today that we're so excited about. This is the first time in AAUW of Oregon history that we have all branches with registered delegates. We have 23 branches and 101 delegates today. So good job, you guys, for getting the word out and for being interested and involved enough to be here with us today. We honor and respect your resilience as you face the challenges of this pandemic world this last year. I know it's been a challenge for everybody, for all of our branches, for each of you individually, but we truly appreciate your commitment to AAUW, to your branches, and to AAUW of Oregon. You are what makes us a success, and we so acknowledge that and understand that. I'm now pleased to welcome my incredible co-president who is going to continue on with our meeting.
Thank you, Sue. I add my welcome and appreciation to that of my amazing co-president, Sue. And I am also delighted to see so many of you here. This is such an exciting time for us to know that so many people are really involved and engaged. The challenges of providing a statewide event have been met with resilience and commitment by our state board and branch officers. And we know that you will profit from today's annual meeting, and we hope that you will enjoy it as well. Let us all join together in commitment to AAUW, national, state, and branches, and let us celebrate the work that you all do to promote equity for all. So please stay muted as Program Vice President Pat Squire reminds us of our commitment as AAUW members.
AAUW of Oregon promotes advocacy, takes action to empower women and girls, and connects national AAUW with branch members. Our vision: AAUW empowers all women and girls to reach their highest potential. In principle and practice, AAUW values and seeks a diverse membership. There shall be no barriers to full participation in this organization on the basis of gender, race, creed, age, sexual orientation, national origin, disability, or class.
Thank you, Pat. We acknowledge the special behind-the-scenes work performed by our events coordinator, Nancy Brown, Oregon Online Branch, and our program vice president, Pat Squire, Lake Oswego Branch. We extend a special thanks to Nancy and Pat for the hours of work that went into this annual meeting. We appreciate everything that you have done to make this event happen. Thank you. Now we'll hear from Public Policy Chair Trish Garner, Portland Branch, who will introduce our keynote speaker. If you have a question for our speaker, please write it in the chat box, and Jessica will answer as many as time allows. So, Trish.
And thank you everybody. I'm having internet difficulties, so I'm doing this through a cell phone and whatever. So I can't say it's great to see you, but I know it would be if I were. So I have the great honor and pleasure to introduce you to Commissioner Jessica Vega Peterson. She's currently serving as Multnomah County Commissioner, following 2 terms as a representative in the Oregon legislature. She was the first Latina to be elected to the Oregon House of Representatives. Yay. I want to mention I knew her back in 2015 when we worked on House Bill 2007, which prohibited discrimination or retaliation against an employee for discussing their wages or wages of another employee. Our ultimate vision was aimed towards the Pay Equity Act, but we both thought that if employees can't talk about their wages, how are they going to be able to figure out if their pay is, appropriate or not? As county commissioner, Jessica convened and chaired the Preschool for All Task Force, and I think she'll talk a little bit about that. I hope so. I want to mention, you come across public figures in kind of my line of volunteer work. But I just want to mention, I have found Commissioner Peterson to be a bright, compassionate, and astute legislator, finding solutions to problems by genuinely collaborating with other people from all communities is her touchstone. Commissioner Vega Peterson is also a mother, a business professional, a progressive Democrat, and a proud resident of East Portland. So it's a great pleasure to introduce you, Commissioner Peterson.
Thank you so much, Trish. That was quite an introduction, and I'm very honored to have you introduce me because we have worked so much together. And I just want to say, good afternoon to everyone. I thank you so much for being here, especially being here on such a glorious Sunday. I think it says a lot about your dedication to AAUW that you're choosing to be here on Zoom instead of outside when the sun is shining in April. And thank you so much for inviting me to speak here. I'm really honored to be part of this annual meeting, and I did think a lot about what I would say during the few minutes that I have with you. I've worked with AAUW so many times over the last 9 years that I've been an elected official, and I am very grateful for the relentless work that you do to fight for policies that support gender equity for women and for girls. When I was in the legislature, like Trish was talking about, I counted on AAUW as a strong partner in the women's economic success agenda that I fought for. And this was a series of bills that included pay equity and pay transparency, raising the minimum wage, paid sick leave, a domestic workers' bill of rights, that we worked to pass over the 2015 and 16 legislative sessions. And, it was thanks to members of AAUW writing emails and testifying and the advocacy that you did in the building that Oregon now stands as a leader in the country on policies that support women and working families. But I think all of us know that there is still a lot of work to do. When I moved from the legislature over to the Multnomah County Commission, one area that I was very eager to work on was early childhood education, and specifically preschool. We know that preschool and childcare in general is a case study in how policies have failed working families. Nearly every family with 2 working adults, and particularly those in single parent households, need preschool for their young children so that the adults in the house can work. But over the last several decades, while the United States GDP has increased 80% after accounting for inflation and population growth, after-tax income for the bottom half of households in this country has only risen 20%. And for middle-class households, that's only risen 50%. Yet those in the top 0.01% of earners, income has risen a whopping 420% since 1980. If income at all levels had risen in proportion to GDP, every American household in the bottom 90% of income would be earning about $12,000 more, not just this year, but every year permanently. In effect, every household in the bottom 90% is sending a check for $12,000 to households in the top 1%, year after year after year. And to relate this to childcare, in 2016, Oregonians spent an average of $12,200 on infant care, $11,400 for toddler care, and nearly $9,400 for care for 4-year-olds. And not surprisingly, despite the high cost, we know that preschool teachers and assistants, professions that are dominated by women and women of color, have not seen pay increase significantly. The pay is often so low. One study found that the average pay of $12 per hour, that many are forced to leave the profession. So you have the perfect storm of preschool being unaffordable for many families, and yet teachers are underpaid. We also put the burden of paying for preschool on families, in spite of the widespread societal benefits. We know that research has shown that high-quality preschool is beneficial for children, particularly those children from low-income families. It helps children prepare for kindergarten academically, socially, and behaviorally, and it shrinks the achievement gap. Research has also shown that for poor children, it increases earnings and better health throughout their life. Economists estimate that the rate of return for funding high-quality preschool range between $7 and $10 for every single dollar that's invested in it. Parents who might otherwise be forced out of the work or forced to reduce their hours or take time off also benefit from high quality preschool. The case for universal publicly supported preschool is obvious. Making it a reality is much more difficult. So how do we get from identifying the problem to policies that center racial equity and the experiences of providers, teachers, and families, and that can pass with a majority of the vote? That's the story that I want to focus on. And in telling that story, I also want to focus on our core values, which were also strategies for inclusion, good policy, and ultimately successful programs. The what that we did with Preschool for All was pretty amazing, but the why and the how we did it is just as important. Those two things, knowing why we needed to take on this work and making sure how we did the work aligned with our values, these were actually the keys to what we were able to achieve with Preschool for All. First, we centered the voices of Black, Brown, and all people of color. The work of Preschool for All actually started years before the November 2020 election. Years ago, work was done in communities to find out what were the biggest barriers to quality preschool that families are facing. Based on that work, we knew that children from low-income communities, children of color, children with developmental delays and disabilities, and children from homes where they speak languages other than English, among others, had the hardest time finding quality preschool and were entering kindergarten furthest behind their peers. So we knew any system that we were going to create had to center and serve those children. We also knew that we had to address the poor wages providers and educators in preschool received. We were committed to ensuring that preschool classroom teachers made comparable salaries to public school kindergarten teachers, and that even classroom assistants would make a living wage. This not only shows the value of the profession, but would attract more teachers into early childhood education and stem the flow of experienced teachers leaving the profession. It's also important to me in policymaking to have a diverse voices at the table and ensure that everyone has a say in creating policy and how we move forward. In putting together the Preschool for All Task Force, I wanted to make sure that we had not just the usual suspects, but also included culturally specific organizations who were already serving the families that we wanted to prioritize. And I knew that we had to include Black and Brown parent voice. There was already a group of parents sitting on the Early Learning Multnomah's Parent Accountability Council who had been shaping the equitable policies of ELM for years. They knew that parents are their child's first teacher, and preschools needed to function in true partnership with parents. I was lucky enough to have two mothers from the PAC, as well as a mother from Albina Head Start, serve on the Preschool for All Task Force. The inclusion of their voices, as well as that of providers, resulted in a bold, robust preschool program for Multnomah County with strong policies that will combat systemic racism and will support women's participation in the workforce. These policies include prohibiting suspensions and expulsion of children, which we know impacts children of color, especially Black boys, the most. We were also created a stability fund for 0 to 3 childcare slots. We have a childcare desert in every single county in our state for infant and toddler spaces, and we did not want Preschool for All to contribute to the loss of those slots, which has happened in other parts of the country where they've instituted universal preschool. We also made sure that Preschool for All includes center-based preschool, in-home preschools, multi-generational preschool programs, preschools in schools, and Head Starts. We wanted to support family choice in creating universal preschool, and we wanted to support the existing small business owners who are already operating childcare and preschool in Multnomah County. Our broad coalition and the centering of Black and Brown voices that we had in policymaking carried over into our campaign. It was how we were able to build a coalition of over 100 organizations strong for the campaign. And in the summer of 2020, we were able to join forces with the Universal Preschool Now Coalition to unite under one effort to pass universal preschool. We had the benefit of the incredible work that UPN did in their grassroots effort to gather over 28,000 signatures over the summer of 2020. This created a broad base of people who were familiar with and supportive of a universal preschool program. We made sure that the way we ran our campaign reflected the accessible, inclusive values of the policymaking by including parents, workers, unions, culturally specific organizations, philanthropy, and healthcare in our campaign committee. We compensated people and organizations for their time and participation and worked with local community partners for our phone banking and text banking voter outreach. I am so proud of the way that we ran this campaign. And having a strong campaign was absolutely incredibly important because we were dealing with the unknown impact of the COVID pandemic on the election. How COVID-19 was going to affect voters considering a new tax raising measure in November was a big question mark for all of us. But ultimately, there were two things going for us that helped the campaign immensely. First, the shuttering of schools and childcare centers during COVID made the issue much more salient for families and employers. COVID illustrated that schools and childcare underpin our economy. And while no one was worried that public schools would be shuttered forever because we knew that the publicly funding they received was stable and strong, we saw far too many preschool and childcare providers close down because they did not have resources to outlast months without income. I believe it was hugely important for voters to have a ballot measure in front of them that was supporting preschool and childcare. At the same time, so many of us were struggling as our own children didn't have their childcare or school solutions. Second, the economic impact and recovery of COVID was completely lopsided. Those who were doing well before the pandemic were least affected by the economic downturn and were the ones to bounce back the fastest. In some cases, bouncing back even better than before. In the US, 56 new billionaires were created between March and December of 2020. This is at the same time as over 76 million people in this country lost work. The revenue mechanism we chose to pay for Preschool for All, a personal income tax on higher income earners, made complete sense considering the disparate economic environment that we're operating in. Because of the efforts that went in to create a visionary, comprehensive universal preschool policy, and the way that we took those values into leading an inclusive, powerful campaign, we were able to win in November with 64% of the vote and pave the way for a program that's going to give our children access to an education that will provide benefits to them and to all of us for generations to come. I am so glad to share the story of Preschool for All with AAUW today, because as women in this organization, you get how important it is to have policies in place that support and uplift women, and to have women in place to create and pass those policies. We know that there is unique power in the way that women lead. It is why we profess loudly that the future is female, why we marvel at Black girl magic, why we cherish the richness of experiences of wise Latina women. It's why we know that nasty women get shit done. And let me tell you, we do. So we work together with passion and with grit to get women into boardrooms, onto trading floors, into legislative bodies, onto construction sites, and someday soon, sitting in the Oval Office. We work for this because we know what's possible when we are the ones making decisions that everyone's life depends on. One thing I know for sure is that who's in charge makes all the difference in what gets done. I've seen it on the all-female teams I've worked with in tech companies, where, by the way, we need a lot more women in charge. And it's the same way in politics. I've worked with amazing female leaders. Together, we've passed policies that make incredible impacts in the lives of women, children, and families. Policies that help women thrive by establishing paid sick leave statewide and raising the minimum wage. Policies that steward our planet for our children and for their children by moving as quickly as possible to renewable energy. It's why I've worked so hard to bring Preschool for All to Multnomah County, because we need to invest in the children who have been left behind by systems that don't recognize or nurture their value. And we need to pay the women caring for them a living wage that respects and values the work that they're doing. I was able to see Justice Sonia Sotomayor when she was in town a few years ago, and she was asked by a young girl, "What advice do you have for a girl who wants to change the world?" Her answer, "Make it not about yourself, but about what you can do for other people." How amazing is it that the response from a person serving on the highest court in our nation was about centering others? It is amazing and yet not surprising, because that is what happens when women lead. That is what happens when women lead. Preschool for All is what happens when women lead. And that is exactly what our world needs more of. So I'm here with you today to commit that we will never stop fighting to bring more women leading, more creating policies and opportunities that support women and girls into our world. We know that our future depends on it. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you. Thank you. See what I mean, everybody?
Right. Oh my.
So
Thank you.
Trish, if anybody has questions for Commissioner Vega Peterson, we have a few minutes, and post your questions in chat. And Trish, can you see questions in chat, Trish?
No.
So I will, or one of our presidents will take care of this.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. We do have one question. I am an advocate for childcare, says Jamie Hendricks from Seaside Branch. What was the increase in taxes for higher income earners or preschool?
Sure. So the mechanism for Preschool for All is a tiered marginal income tax on higher income earners. So, and it's been a little bit. So the rate is, hold on, let me look it up real quick. So the rate for the first tier is Oregonians with household income, single file earners at incomes at 125,000 or above. It's a 1.5% marginal income rate. For households filing jointly, that's 250,000. And then there's an additional 1.5% marginal income tax rate when you get to the 250,000 for single or 300,000 for joint.
Wow.
Or, I'm sorry, it's 400,000 for joint.
Okay, thank you. Here's just a comment. Thank you for a great presentation. Enjoyed that tremendously, from Betsy McDowell. Another question: what kinds of policies can reduce the escalating income inequality?
So we don't have that much time to get into all the policies, but I think that we can really look. I think that we can really look at some of the policies that have been in place in other countries for decades, for years, that we don't have in this country. And I think one of the most powerful things that we can do is fund education, which is why I pushed so hard for Preschool for All and universal preschool. And I think we need to continue to support education opportunities. But we also have to look at things like childcare, which is the next thing. It just, I always like to say, it just shouldn't be so hard in this country to be a working woman, to be a working parent. And there are a lot of things like support for childcare that we don't have that other countries have, but they are things that we used to have. I was at Pittock Mansion with going on the tour that they have of Vanport. And one of the plaques was talking about childcare during World War II in Vanport. And at one time they had 6 different childcare centers running 24 hours a day to cover childcare for the workers at the plant. We've done this before in our country, and the fact that we don't do it now is policies that were intentional of getting women out of the workplace, of keeping them at home. And it honestly does not reflect at all the reality of so many 2-parent working households or single parent households in this country, and that's something that we have to change. So I think that's one of those things. I think student loans is a huge thing. Like I said, I believe education is such a key force, but the fact that we don't have that college is so expensive and it burdens so many people for decades to take on that student debt is something that disincentivizes people from going to college. And I also think that a huge factor in income inequality is healthcare, and the fact that we don't have a public option in this country and people go bankrupt, people do not access the healthcare that they need. Again, this is a policy that so many of our peer countries and other parts of the world have had in place for a long time. And what we have in this country right now is a travesty to just providing the basic level of care, healthcare that people should depend on. So that's my little soapbox on those things. I could talk about that all day.
Thank you. And one more question. Have you faced sexual discrimination as a politician? And if so, could you give some examples?
So, I mean, there have been plenty of times where I've been the only woman or the only person of color or only woman of color in the room when I've been talking about policies. And that ranges from, I did a lot on climate and energy policy when I was chair of the House Energy and Environment Committee, and there was lots of times I was the only woman in the room. and transportation policy that's happened, where I'm the only female elected official when we've been having like meetings to talk about what transportation investments that we need. So I've definitely been the only a lot of times. The actual sexual discrimination, I think that when I found that mostly has been when I was on the campaign trail. So I was, you know, when I first ran for office, I was running in 2011, 2012 for the state legislature. And I, you know, we'd go knocking door to door in our district. And, you know, I was knocking on this door and there was this talking to this guy. And, you know, I was just telling him a little bit about myself and why I went for office. And he's like, oh, well, you're a mother. You should be home with your kids. You shouldn't be out running for office. And then I was like, okay, well, that guy's not going to vote for me. But what he didn't know was that my only opponent was also a woman, a mother who was running. So like, you know, this is the reality of what life is like now. So that too bad for him. But I think that I think once I became elected, you know, there is a certain power and privilege that comes with being an elected official. And so I haven't experienced any of the sexual discrimination that I think we've heard about like in the legislature or in the halls of Congress. And I feel lucky for that. And I will always like go to bat and go to the mat for women who are either electeds or staff or lobbyists who do experience that, because that is something that's just not acceptable and shouldn't be acceptable in any way, shape, or form, no matter what level of government you're at.
Thank you. Well, we don't have time for other questions, but Jessica, I hope that you will look at the chat and see the very positive comments that people are making about your presentation. Want to thank you so very much for your excellent and effective work that benefits women and their families, which, as you know, is AAUW priority as well. And thank you, Trish, also for that great presentation and that great introduction. We really appreciate it. Thank you,
thank you guys so much.
Jessica.
Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. You too. Enjoy the sunshine. Nancy, now are you ready to give us some instructions about meeting protocol and procedures?
All right, so everyone, thank you so much for coming today. I am really excited to see so many here today. We had over 50 people registered, but I do know that a lot of people, you know, for some people, there was other things they needed to do, or they just decided it was too pretty outside. But thank you so much for being here for our second online virtual annual meeting. After a year of online training, I am familiar with so very many of you, and I am glad that we could all come together again on screen to conduct the business of the state. So housekeeping. Here's the deal. Please stay on mute unless you are specifically called on to speak or is your turn to present. And I roam the participants list and mute people that I see have unmuted themselves. We're recording this session. But if you do not speak, you will not be in the recording. Just so you know, the way I record, it's only the speaker that is recorded. Sometimes if you're unmuted and you just make a noise on your desk, your picture shows up on the recording. So that's why I want everyone to please be muted. Now, here's the deal about voting. We're going to use our virtual hands, not our real hands, for our voting. And I just lost my notes because I was admitting someone. Okay, we're going to use our virtual hands. So there's a few ways to do this depending on how you are on the meeting. If you're on a computer, laptop, desktop, you will raise your virtual hand one of two ways, depending on how new or updated your Zoom is. For a Zoom that has not been updated very recently, you will look at the bottom of the list of participants on your Zoom window, and there should be an option for raise hand. For those who have updated their Zoom more recently, you look at the bottom of your window to the right, and there should be a little icon or a little menu called reactions. And if you click on that, there should be a raise hand as an option in reactions. So those are the two ways we're going to raise hands. And if you're on the phone, I notice we do have somebody on the phone that I don't know who is. And so I don't know if you're a voter or not. And note that only delegates, people with a D in front of their name, are, of course, allowed to vote. And if you are a delegate on the phone, you press 9 to raise your hand, 9 on your phone keypad. All right. So I guess what we'll do is we'll say, raise your hand, we'll count, and then we'll say, please lower your hand, and then we'll move to the next count, right? I have put the workbook in chat. If you haven't gotten your copy out of the email that Ilga sent, we did have an update, and so I have put that in chat. I can put it in again if you don't see it. I'm also going to add the officer reports because those are things that we're going to be going through today. I want to make sure everybody has their copy. And I think that is, if you have a motion, if you're going to make a motion, here's how we're doing this. I need you to put the motion in chat. Okay, so if you're going to make a motion, type it into chat. I will copy it from chat and put it in a Word document so that it's bigger and it's on screen, and I will share the screen so that everybody can see it. Because many of us who have not great eyesight have a hard time reading stuff in chat. Anybody have any questions for me? Go ahead and unmute yourself to ask your question.
Nancy, we were, any announcements we were going to also put in chat?
Oh, that's right. But that's not, I'm not saying that part. Somebody else is
Right,
saying
that
part.
comes a little later. Yeah, that's all right. We're breaking this up.
Any announcements you have? I don't see the documents you're referring to in chat. Caitlin, that's because I posted it before you got here. So I will repost the documents. They also came to you in your email reminding you of this annual meeting session. All right, I'm going to mute myself.
Okay. Nancy is muted. I am not. Thank you very much, Nancy. I hope that everything runs smoothly from here on. Next, I would like to recognize the following leaders. A national leader from AAUW of Oregon is Claudia Gray of Hillsborough Forest Grove Branch, who's a member of the AAUW Legacy Circle team. Claudia, we really appreciate your being here at this annual meeting, and we are looking forward to Tuesday's event with you hosting the celebration and award ceremony as well. Oregon is proud to have so many past state presidents active and involved in our state organization. We really are. We are outstanding in this area. 16 of them are here as delegates at this meeting. They are Marilyn Zook, Claudia Gray, Gloria Martin, Gail Clayson, Margaret Drummond, Alice Bartelt, Linda O'Hara, Margene Ridout, Betsy McDowell, Marty Stevens, Penny Hoodenpyle, Kathy DeWolf, Cynthia Rauscher, Joyce Zook, Kathy Dew, and Georgia Applegate. Thank you all for your continuing support and contributions to AAUW Oregon. We appreciate your being here as well. So yes, kudos to you. Also, AAUW of Oregon has 23 college university representatives who were invited to attend from 13 colleges and universities. We have 5 with us today. They are Velda Arnaud, Blue Mountain Community College, Pendleton Branch, Angie Hunt, Clatsop Community College, Wee Yun Lee, Oregon Institute of Technology, Anna Manley, Rogue Community College, Grants Pass Branch, and Teresa Ravines, Tillamook Bay Community College, Tillamook Branch. Thank you all for your commitment to equity and education and your work to connect college, university, and branches and AAUW of Oregon. I'd also now like to recognize our state leadership team members, our committee chairs, our branch presidents, our branch board members, and branch committee chairs. We appreciate the work that you do to make this Oregon organization so great. Here are our branch presidents for AAUW of Oregon. Albany, Teresa Johnson and Vicki Stoffelbach. Ashland, Catherine Lutz and Paula Weeken. Astoria, Liz Bartelt. Baker, Wanda Rafferty. Bend, Jane McEldowney and Caitlin O'Donnell. Eugene Lane, Sheila Rammerman. Grants Pass, Lee Botschweiler. Gresham area, Bonnie Jepson and Peggy Taylor. Hillsborough Forest Grove, Claire Berger. Lake Oswego, Mary Pat Silvera. Lakeview, Deb Watts. Lincoln City, Susan Walke. Medford, Carol Kosick. Oregon Online, Elena Ray Bohannon. Pendleton, Kate Mace and Catherine Cheney. Portland, Susan Marthins and Katie Rates. Roseburg, Betty Mack. Salem, Joyce Zook. Seaside, Jamie Hendricks. Tigard area, Ilga Ross and Marcia Brockmeyer. Tillamook, Susan Pierce. Wallowa County, Susan Gilstrap. And Yamhill County, Linda O'Hara. Thank you all for your service. And now, the leadership team members. Our Communications Vice President, Ilga Ross, Portland and Tigard area branches. Our Finance Vice President, Sarah Elmer, Bend. Our Membership Vice President, Ginny Didium, Seaside. Our Program Vice President, Pat Squire, Lake Oswego. Our Secretary, Marie Miller, Salem. Northwest District Director, Karen A. King, Pendleton. North Central District Director, Mary Pat Silvera, Lake Oswego. Central District Director, Elena Ray Bohannon, Eugene Lane. Northwest District Director, Susan Walke, Lincoln City. South District Director, Joan Radcraft, Medford. And our AUW Funds Chair, Claudia Gray, Hillsborough Forest Grove, and Betsy McDowell, Salem Branch. Governance, Betsy McDowell, Salem Branch, and Claudia Gray, Hillsborough Forest Grove. College University Relations, Dina Press, Grants Pass. Dues Treasurer Database, Ginny Didium, Hillsborough Forest Grove. Events Coordinator, Nancy Brown, Oregon Online Branch. Historian, Sarah Meyer, Astoria Branch. Nominating Committee and STEM, Kathy Gervasi, Tillamook. Oregon News Editor, Pam Alegria, Astoria. Parliamentarian, Alice Bartelt, Portland. Public Policy, Trish Garner, Portland. Work Smart, Start Smart, Nancy Thomas, Portland. Webmaster, Facebook, Marguerite Damewood, Grants Pass. Technology, Georgia Applegate, Grants Pass. And President's Assistant, Suzanne Harmony, Grants Pass. Thanks to all of you who have given so generously of your time and your dedication and your effort for AAUW of Oregon and for our branches. Thank you. Just a couple more announcements. Several processes were implemented to keep the annual meeting moving smoothly and to shorten the time. So credentials, you were credentialed when you were admitted to the meeting, and we are assuming now that everybody who is a delegate has a D in front of their name. The announcement process, the announcements will be made at the end of the business session. So you need to type any written messages to Secretary Marie into the chat, marking them as an announcement. Okay. Next,
Can I just say that people may not know Marie's last name
Marie
so that they
Miller.
can find
Yes, Marie Miller. Thank you very much. I meant to write that and I didn't. Okay. Next, I ask you to direct your attention to our co-president, Sue Klump, who will be leading the business session.
Pat. 96th State Annual Meeting of the American Association of University Women of Oregon is in session. The business meeting will now come to order. I want to introduce the people who help to keep track of the meeting details surrounding the business meeting portions of our annual meeting. Helping me are Marie Mueller, Secretary from Salem, Alice Bartelt, Parliamentarian from Portland, Suzanne Harmony, President's Assistant, Grants Pass, who will also be our timekeeper. And most importantly, Nancy Brown Online, who's running this Zoom meeting, and we could not do this without you. There are many behind the scenes people that are here working with us as well, so we appreciate each and every one of you. The purpose of our annual meeting is to conduct the business of the state, including the elections of officers, receiving of reports from officers and committee chairs. Officer reports were sent to you earlier, and I hope that you've had a chance to read through them. If not, pull them up afterwards, and you can always send Pat and I questions if you do have them later. Other reports will be referenced during the business session. Before we have the report by the Credentials Committee, I want to explain that some members hold more than one position in AAUW. They have the option to choose one position in which to vote at the annual meeting. May we now have the report of the Credentials Committee by Mary Pat Silvera, our chair from Lake Oswego.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I would like to note that the most recent edition of the meeting workbook dated April 17th reflects all the changes to representation as of the 16th of April on pages 6 and 7, with one exception. Please add the name of Pat Hines, H-I-N-E-S, as the delegate of the Wallowa branch. Madam President, I am pleased to repeat what was already announced this morning, that we have made history today. For the first time, all 23 branches are represented in our meeting. We applaud such universal participation and the inclusion of all of our voices from across the state. The list of credential delegates include 21 of a possible 24 members of the state leadership team, plus an additional 2 who are today representing their respective branches. 9 of a possible 21 past state presidents, plus an additional 7 who are representing either the state leadership team or their respective branches. 67 branch delegates out of a possible 71. 5 college university representatives out of a possible 23. Altogether, we have today registered 101 delegates out of a possible 162. And I'm not sure what the final tally was, but when I checked with Nancy at about 30 minutes before the meeting started, we had 147 members registered for this meeting. As chair of the Credentials Committee, I certify that this reports the number of delegates registered at this annual meeting as of April 18th, 2021 at approximately 1:50 p.m. On behalf of the committee, I move the adoption of this report.
Thank you, Mary Pat. Thank you. No second is required as the motion comes from a committee. Just reminding anybody. Are there any questions of Mary Pat at this time? No? Okay. There's no objection. The report of the Credentials meeting, Credentials Committee is officially adopted. Thank you. Alice Bartelt, Portland Parliamentarian, will now give the annual meeting rules report.
Hello. I'm not going to read them. You will find the meeting rules on page 8 in your workbook. And unless anybody has any questions, I don't have anything to add.
Are there any questions of Alice? Okay, if none, there are no objection. The annual meeting rules are adopted. Thank you, Alice. Adoption of the annual meeting agenda. If there's no objection, the agenda will be adopted for this meeting with the chair reserving the right to make any necessary changes. Since I hear no objections, I'll declare the agenda adopted. The credentials establish the presence of a quorum. With the adoption of the report of the credentials, rules, and agenda, this annual meeting is now officially organized to conduct business. Woohoo, we're organized. Minutes of the previous state meeting. I asked Sharon Noon, Gresham Area Branch, to report the results of the committee to review the minutes of the 2020 state business meeting. I want to thank Sharon and Nyla Chilton, Yamhill County Branch, and Jean Mung, Tillamook Branch, for their work on last year's minutes. Sharon? Sharon Noon, are you with us?
I am with you.
Yeah, there you are.
The committee reviewed the first draft of the minutes last year, made a very few changes. We again briefly reviewed the same minutes, and they are now approved as presented.
If there are no objections, the minutes are approved. The following members are appointed to serve as the committee to read the 2021 annual meeting minutes. Carol Kozik, Medford Branch, Susan Pierce, Tillamook Branch, and Wanda Rafferty, Baker Branch. Thank you, ladies, for stepping up and taking this on. We totally appreciate you. Now to go on to reports of officers and committees, and again, refer to your workbook for most of these. Finance Vice President and the Financial Review Committee. Financial report appears with the Finance Vice President's report on page 20 in your officer's report of the 2021 book. Again, you all should have received that. Financial review report is on page 9 of the annual meeting workbook. If there's no objection, the Finance Review Committee report will be approved and the financial report will be filed for review. Okay. Membership report. I call on Jenny Didium, Hillsborough Forest Grove, to give the membership report.
Thank you. My report is on page 21 of the officers' reports, and I do not have anything to add.
Okay, Jenny, thank you very much. Governance report. We'll now receive the report from Governance Committee Co-Chair Betsy McDowell, Salem Branch.
Thank you, Madam President. We have one item to report. This was generated by questions from branches about whether or not honorary life members pay state and branch dues. So we did some research. We found that in our state bylaws, the words "and state" had been omitted. And Nancy had a document she was going to pop up for me. So it is Article 4, Membership and Dues, Section 2, Subhead A4B, 50-year honorary. An individual member who has paid AAUW dues for 50 years shall become a life member and shall thereafter be exempt from the payment of AAUW national and state dues. And as I said, we had in 2016 somehow edited out that "and state." Our state parliamentarian Alice Bartelt said that that's called a scrivener's error. Which was a lovely word to add to our vocabulary. And we restored those words today. It doesn't require a motion, but it brings about another question for branches to reflect on. And that is, you in your bylaws, branches, can either say, I want my 50-year honorary members to pay state dues or not. That is a bylaws change that if you want to make, you may send it up to, actually send it to the Governance Committee, Claudia Gray and I, and we'll get it processed for you. It can go either way, depending on your branch. And I'm not sure if there'll be any questions about that.
Do we have any questions for Betsy on this?
Yes, I have a question. Georgia Applegate, were you
Thank you.
talking
I was gonna say,
about
please
branch
announce again.
dues?
No, state. The words "and states" had been dropped out of the
Yes.
state bylaws accidentally. So that's been
Yes.
restored. So it reads correctly now.
Yes, but then for branch, are you asking then branches if they want to require their 50-year members to pay branch dues?
Yes,
Okay, so the branches decide on that.
yes,
Okay, thank you.
you bet.
Georgia. I just want to remind everybody, if you do have a question, make sure you announce your name and branch with your question. And I see Jenny, you've got a question also?
I don't have a question. It's just that if your branch already does charge branch dues, or your branch does not charge branch dues, unless you are changing it, you don't need to do anything.
True.
And I wanted to make sure that was clear. It's always been a branch decision. Some do, most don't, but only if you're changing it do you need to do anything.
Perfect.
Okay.
Jenny, for the clarification. Any other questions? No forward? Okay, perfect. Betsy and Claudia, thank you. We appreciate this correction and update. Public policy report. We now recognize Trish Garner, Portland branch, to present the public policy priorities for 2021 to 2023. Trish?
Sorry, as I said, I'm on my cell phone here. Okay. Yes, I'm Trish Garner, the State Public Policy Chair, AAUW of Oregon. I would like to introduce my fine Public Policy Committee and hardworking Georgia Applegate, Regina Ayers, Beth Gebstad, Pat Lehman, Sharon Noon, Joe Rossman, and Mary Pat Silvera. As to the report, you'll find the proposed priorities, public policy priorities, on pages 11 to 12 of your workbook. And on behalf of the State Public Policy Committee, I move that AAUW of Oregon adopt the public policy priorities for 2021 to 2023. And it looks like Nancy is showing them to us.
Nancy's walking through.
Linda O'Hara, Yamhill County Branch. Trish, were there any significant changes between this, what's being proposed, and what we were working with for the last biennium?
No, not really. I mean, to the extent that a previous version talked about paid family leave, you know, that had already been passed. We did broaden the language a little bit, like schools free of discrimination, intimidation, etc. You know, it doesn't identify a specific policy that we're talking about. I believe everything else, the addressing the public health crisis presented by firearms violence, I don't believe that was in the prior draft, but again, this is broad, although, for example, in this session, there have been a number of bills that have been suggested, but the Public Policy Committee reviewed them. And again, with the lens of AAUW of Oregon and what we're trying to accomplish, when we see it as a public health crisis, we felt that the safety, you know, making sure that firearms are secure, fell within that category, but some of the others were more tenuous. So, you know, we try to, some of the specific language can be important. So did that answer the question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Motion comes from a committee and does not require a second. The motion is to adopt the public policy priorities for 2021 to 2023. Are there any further questions or discussions? Okay, hearing no further discussion, we'll now do a vote. And now we get to practice our virtual hands. So we have two counters, Suzanne Marie.
Hi, Sue.
Yes?
You had a question by Carol. This is Shirley Schroeder in Medford. You have a question by Carol Kozak that was missed.
Okay.
The question I had was in the report, it says 2020 to 2021, but when we were chatting about it, you said 2021 to 2023. Is that, I don't understand.
It should be 20, it should be the 2021 to 2023.
So then the thing on page 10, then those numbers should be changed. Is that what you're saying? Because that's what I get.
Yes, it should be instead of 2020 to 2021, it should be 2021 to 2023. Correct.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much.
So if everybody could make that correction in their workbook. And again, that is page 10 on the workbook. Thank you. All right, any further questions or discussion? All right, then let's go over time for a vote. We have two counters, Marie Mueller and Suzanne Harmony. So what I'm going to do is ask everybody in favor of adopting the public policy priorities, please raise your hand. And then we're going to wait for a minute while they count for us. So Marie and Suzanne, if you'll let me know when we're ready. I'm seeing lots of hands up.
Our Public Policy Committee does such good work.
They do. Absolutely. All right.
Sue, while the votes are being counted, this is Linda O'Hara again. There is also another place in that workbook where the date needs to be changed. And that is on the next page after the one that was pointed out, 2021. The next page has a reference to 2022. So I believe that should be 21 to 23.
No.
Perfect. And that's page 11. Thank you, Linda.
Somebody just said no.
No. Can you guys wait a minute to talk about this till we get the vote counted? I'm sorry, it's hard for us to focus on everything.
No problem, Linda. We'll keep you in hand.
Okay.
This is Mary Pat. I'm actually getting an automatic count on my computer that says 81 participants raised hand.
Oh my God, aren't you wonderful, Mary Pat?
Oh, we're keeping Mary Pat.
All right, Suzanne and Marie, do you pretty much agree?
Marie and Suzanne, you need to vote as well. And I do too.
I voted.
I didn't.
Okay, it now says 81.
82.
I did vote, I thought.
83.
84.
4.
84.
Okay, we have one clap and one thumbs up.
That'll work.
So that's 86.
That's 86.
So 86. Okay, now we have to do this. If everybody puts their hands back down, please.
Sue?
Yep.
Does Bonnie Jemson, how does she vote? She's got her hand raised. She does not have computer access.
Okay, then we will add her as 85. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
if everybody can lower their hands, please.
And just go back to the way you raised it. I forgot how to do it myself. So if you were at the bottom of participants or using your reactions.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Betsy McDowell, Salem Branch. My understanding on the public policy report priority areas, those were adopted at last year's annual meeting for the period of 2020 to 2022. It's a 2-year biennium public policy focus area, okay? The thing that Trish brought forward today, approximately a 1-page document on 2010 was supposed to be, my understanding was it was supposed to be for this legislative session.
And Trish may want to clarify that. See, we thought it was this session that's happening right now. That's why it said 2020 to 2021.
Trish, can you clarify for us?
Well, this is complicated because the requirements don't really fit with the legislative session calendar. That's another reason that we made the priorities somewhat broader. In other words, for example, I have absolutely no idea what we know what's going to be our primary issue for the next session, i.e. the short session, much less the next long session. And so the Public Policy Committee, and I have tried to divine what that might be and also add some, semi-broad language. So in a sense, it doesn't really matter. I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that. I've been told a couple things by a couple people, and I just, for me, I drafted the committee and I drafted the priorities, the dates, but it's not for this session. I mean, it is because it clearly everything we're doing falls within those priorities. But am I making any sense?
Since I opened this kettle of worms, Linda O'Hare again, I'm going to say that in reviewing this again, I noticed that the information on page 10 says there's a proposed action for communication for the dates that are wrong. But then the smaller print says statewide action plan legislative priorities, whereas the other document I was looking at said, there it is right there. Okay, thanks, Nancy. The public policy program goals. So they could rightfully be a different time frame because that's public policy program goals as opposed to the legislative thing. And in my looking, like Trish points out, we have a long session and then a short session. So that one right there on 10 could be 21 to 22 to reflect a long and a short session. Whereas the program policy goals, I understand, are something different than possibly what we're doing for the current legislature. And that goes on how many pages? This is a one-page thing on page 10. And now that other thing goes for 11 and 12 and 13 maybe. So I apologize for opening up that can of worms before I actually read what the headline of the proposal was. I truly understand a statewide action plan, legislative priorities versus public policy program goals. To me, that is something different and could be different dates.
So Trish, how do you want this labeled?
Well, I guess the proposal for action, I still think should be 2021 to 2023. If there's a need for a change, we can do that. It would seem to me the goals could be pushed out. In other words, these things should be the same. And as I say, I brought this issue up and, thought I had responded to what the final consensus was. There are broad public policy goals, and then obviously there's action. So to the extent, but also do we get into a problem parliamentarian wise, to the extent that we've said to this, to this gathering that we're only going to be considering the proposal for action. Does that constitute sufficient notice to change the date? In other words, I think it would be better for me if both of these have the same date. But
Alice, do you agree? Leave them both 2021 to
Yeah,
2023?
that's fine. as having done a lot of public policy, we had a big public policy program at one point, and that is what your program goals think, and that did not change very much at all. It was like it stayed there as kind of like the background, and then your then your priorities that you adopted, that was what we worked with each legislative session. So you could put the same dates on them. 2020 is not very helpful at this point, since for your action communication plan, that makes sense because that's what you worked on last session, and you're working on this session. The one that we are in the process of adopting, which we have not taken the no vote yet on, we need to do that.
I understand that.
That just serves as your background, and that probably does not have to be adopted every 2 years. It can, but it's, well, actually, I think we did that. I think we would adopt it every 2 years,
right?
But it hardly ever changed, because it's really much broader. And what you adopted last year is what you're working on right now at the legislative session. Does that make sense?
Okay, Trish, are we okay to lead them 2021 to 2023 for both page 9 and 10?
Fine with
I
me.
think that's fine.
That's great.
Yeah,
Great.
it's fine.
Perfect.
Because
And then-
next year, because in all likelihood, next year, you're going to want to come back with your proposal for action communication and talk about that again.
Okay. Yep.
Linda, did you have another question? Or are you okay with this?
No, I'm going to say that I recall, and for people that forget our in-person sessions, is that the one that right now says 20 to 22 is the one, as Alice points out, that we adopted last year when we were doing this, and it shouldn't be changed again until 22.
Right.
We have in the past voted on adopting this public policy program goals every 2 years. We shouldn't be touching that at all unless there's some big issue. We adopted that last year. It stays true to next year when we will adopt one. That one pager on page 10 is the legislative action, which to me, what I'm hearing is needs to be from legislature to legislature. And yes, whoever brought this up, it could easily be, or maybe should be 21 to 23, but it could also be just yearly also. It could be an annual thing. But I'm holding fast to that 20 to 22 because that's not what's before this body, and it needs to stay that way.
Right.
Thanks, Alice.
Thank you.
I'm chill with whatever the decision is.
Okay, so I'm hearing at this point that we leave page 10
alone.
No, we changed page 10 to 2021 to 2023. We leave page 11, the program goals as is. Okay,
Sounds
there we
good to me. Sounds
Got it.
good to me.
And we do have a vote on the floor. We still need to raise our virtual hands. So I'm going to ask all those in favor, please raise your virtual hands. Or excuse me, all of those
opposed.
Please raise your virtual hands. If we could go back to full screen again, Nancy Brown. Our counters can count.
They're probably not going to see.
Okay.
There are only two.
State what we're voting
Okay.
on. It's
4. There are 4 now. 6.
Plus a heart or 7.5 thumbs up. So that would be 8.
Are these votes for or against?
These votes are for. These votes are against. These are opposed.
There are 8, 9, no 8, 7. Going away. 4, 3. People are taking their hands down. There are only 3 now.
Okay.
There's
So
an unhappy face too. So that might mean 4.
I wanted mine to be a yes, please.
Okay, so we have 85 in favor, 3 opposed, or 2 opposed. What are you guys seeing?
2, it says, I think we have 2 opposed.
Okay. So 85 in favor, 2 opposed. So the motion is adopted. Thank you, Trish.
Thank you.
Good job, ladies. Good discussion. We'll now hear from the report of the nominating committee from Chair Kathy Gervasi. Kathy?
Thank you. Many of you know that if you've ever served on the nominating committee for a state or your local branch, it's a very, it can be a very difficult job. But I will say this committee was fantastic and got right to work, and we were pretty much done by January. I would like to thank that committee. Those members are Georgia Applegate from Grants Pass, Joan Rycraft from Medford, Lucy Hutchins from Baker, Arlene Lemieux from Gresham, and Teresa Johnson, alternate from Albany, as well as myself as chair. So our slate that we would like to present today, first of all, President-elect will be Linda Liebecker from Hillsborough. Program VP, Pat Squire from Lake Oswego. Finance VP, Monica Wahey from Medford. Secretary, Maureen Mueller from Salem. North Central District Director, Mary Pat Severa from Lake Oswego. South District Director, Pat Shea. We all appreciate very much for these women stepping up. Some are repeating and others are new. So this is the slate of officers presented.
Kathy, did you also want to give the list of the nominating committee? And I want to point out the slate of officers is for 2021 to 2023. The nominating committee is 2021 to 2022.
Correct. Do we vote first on the slate or do we vote on?
No,
okay.
Go ahead and read off.
So the nominating committee, which will be for next year, 21-22. And again, thank you for all those that agreed. Linda O'Hara from Yamhill County, myself from Tillamook, Teresa Johnson from Albany, Susan Walke from Lincoln City, Kathy DeWolf from Medford, and Jill Hefner will be the alternate from Pendleton.
Kathy, thank you. And thank you to the members of your committee. We know how hard you work, and we're just incredibly impressed with the success that you've got. So thank you so much. So you've heard the report of the nominating committee. You've seen the nominees' photos and statements in the spring issue of Oregon News, and also in the workbooks, page 13 and 14. So we've decided based on time that we're going to dispense with candidate speeches at this point. So I guess we're not able to spotlight each one of you. So hopefully you know that we appreciate you and you are in our hearts and in our minds as we go forward. So we will now open nominations from the floor for each office. A second is not required. Nominations require written consent to the nominee, which needs to be given to myself and to Secretary Marie. To speed the process, I remind you that a motion to close the nominations requires a 2/3 majority vote. If there are no nominations and you remain silent, we can proceed directly to the next office without a vote, which will save considerable time. We'll take a vote on all of the statewide officers at the end of the nominations, and we'll do the same for the nominating committee. So let's go ahead and start. Are there any nominations from the floor for the office of President-elect? Okay, hearing none, nominations for President-elect are now closed. Are there any nominations from the floor for office of Program Vice President? Okay, hearing none, the nominations for Program Vice President are now closed. Are there any nominations from the floor for the office of Finance Vice President? Okay, hearing none, nominations for Program Vice President are now closed. Are there any nominations from the floor for the office of Secretary? Hearing none, nominations from Secretary are now closed. Okay. All of those in favor of electing Linda Liebecker as president-elect, Pat Squire as program vice president, Monica Wahey as finance vice president, and Marie Mueller as secretary, please raise your virtual hand. Look at all those hands.
I see 86.
86?
87 now.
Hi, I can't get out. I wasn't allowed to vote.
Who was speaking?
And who are you?
Betty Mack.
Betty Mack Roseburg. Okay. So
Yeah.
88.
I wasn't allowed to, it wouldn't let me vote.
All right. And Betty is a delegate. So we have 88.
This is Peggy Taylor Gresham. Did you include Bonnie Gibson?
That's right. You're both there together. Okay. So we have 89 total.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right. We have 89 in favor. If everybody could bring it to lower their hands, please. Screen blinks a lot when this happens. I'm gonna get dizzy. Okay. All of those opposed, please raise your virtual hand. Marie and Suzanne, do we see any opposed?
No, we do
Not.
We do not. Thank you. The candidates have been elected. Thank you. Applause, please. We appreciate you stepping up to take on these important roles. And Linda Liebecker, Pat and I will be in touch. Okay, nominations are now in order for the office of North Central District Director. Keep in mind that only those delegates in North Central District can vote for this position. That is Gresham area, Hillsborough, Forest Grove, Lake Oswego, Oregon Online, Portland, and Tigard area. Okay. So all of those in favor of Mary Pat Silvera, Lake Oswego, all of those in North Central District, please raise your virtual hands.
I don't think you asked for nominations.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not. You're correct. Let me back this up. Lower your hands, please. Sorry. Thank you for the update. Do we have nominations from the floor for North Central Director? Hearing none, nominations are closed. Now raise your virtual hands. And remember, it's just North Central that can vote.
I see 28.
I see 28.
Okay. All right, hands down.
Please remember, this is Peggy Taylor Gresham. Please remember to include Bonnie.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. 29.
I see a comment from Caitlin in the chat about confusion about what we're voting on.
That was previous. That's not now.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Virtual hands down. All right. We still have some hands up that need to come down. Okay, perfect. All of those opposed? Oh, wait, Marty. Yep, there we go. Okay, all of those opposed, please raise your virtual hand.
None.
Okay, none opposed. Mary Pat, you are voted. Thank you very, very much. So now nominations are open for the office of South District Director. Okay, hearing none, nominations for this office are closed. Okay, all of those in South District, which again is just this district, it's Ashland, Grants Pass, Lakeview, Medford, and Roseburg. All of those in favor of Pam Shea for South District Director, please raise your virtual hands.
Betty Mack, again, it's not letting me vote. Would you put my vote in for her?
We got you, vote. We got you.
Thank you.
So we're up to 26 then with a missing vote.
Okay, so 26 including Betty Mack?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so lower hands, please. Isn't this fun? All right, Kathy DeWolf, can you lower your hand, please? All right, perfect. All of those opposed, please raise your hands. Okay, seeing none, Pam Shea is officially South District Director. Thank you so much. South District, we are excited. We're all excited. Good job. All right. This concludes our elections. Please join me in congratulating. Oh, wait, nope, I'm sorry. We're going to do the nomination. We need to do the nominating committee for 2021. Are there any further nominations from the floor for nominating committee? Okay, hearing none, nominations for nominating committee are closed. All those in favor of electing the candidates, and this is everyone that can vote, all the delegates, please raise your virtual hands.
Betty Mack, same problem.
Betty Mack, thank you. And Bonnie, we got you too.
So with
See,
two
89 or
corrections,
90 with the
91?
missing one.
Are we
90?
missing? Are we missing one or two?
Two.
Okay,
So it'd be 91.
91.
Okay, everybody lower your hands, please. We still need some hands lowered. I know this takes time. I appreciate everybody's patience. It's not quite as much fun as standing up with our paddles used to be, but it works. And it's not a teal paddle, although we should have had teal hands. We could have done teal hands with that. All right, all those opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, hearing none, nominations for nominating committee are now closed, or excuse me, we are elected and official. Thank you, Linda, Kathy, Teresa, and Susan. We appreciate you. Okay, on to new business. Is there any new business? I haven't seen anything coming up in chat with that. We do want Nancy Brown to talk about our options for our 2022 annual meeting, so a year from now. Nancy, our events coordinator.
All right. Well, I don't want to really look at me because I'm going to show a little bit of, back in the day, before we changed how we do annual meetings, we called them conventions. We had a local branch host, and they used to come and do a fancy, fun invitation at convention for the next year. Come to our, next year's convention. We're going to do all these wonderful and fun things, and we want to have you there. Well, unfortunately, we changed how things done. And so now I have to do that. And so we're going to invade Ashland next year. And we're going to be at the Ashland Hills Hotel and Suites. Now, I had people say there was another hotel in downtown Ashland that they would rather do or whatever. But let me tell you, we don't know what our restrictions are going to be this time next year. The Ashland Hills Hotel and Suites has the largest facility in that area so that we will able to be separated. In fact, I am booking the larger meeting rooms, even though if it was a normal year, we wouldn't need quite that much space. So we're going to be, next year, 2022, at the Ashland Hills Hotel and Suite. And here is welcoming us to the lobby of the hotel. And then we can, go really fast. The grand ballroom will hold a whole bunch of people. And luckily, when we have distancing and meeting restrictions, it will still hold all of us that are attending. Here are we're going to be all on the main level. So it's the grand ballroom and the two halves of the grand ballroom and the Stardust Lounge, which will be a really fun, funky workshop space. I'm really looking forward to that one. That's this right here. And it can be an intimate gathering space, as intimate as we can get. And let's see, here's a one bedroom sleeping room, a 2-bedroom sleeping room, a bigger suite, which, we always give to our fancy people. And then this is the outside of the Ashland Hills. If you've never been there, it's really cool. It's on the east side of the freeway from Ashland, so it is a bit of ways. So we'll have to drive when we're gonna go walk the shops in downtown, but still it's a beautiful venue and I just love it. So that is what we're going to be doing next year, April 8th through 10th at the Ashland Hills Hotel. One more thing that I did want to share about, we're not doing a in-person summer event. We're going to have Summer Skills Camp 2.1 or 2021. And so I'm developing a logo ideas and I want your help because last year we had a t-shirt and I got comments that people wanted to buy the t-shirt. We could do a fundraiser of the t-shirt. So what kind of logo should we put on the t-shirt? So the top row here are some pictures that I found that we could use. I haven't yet purchased them, but those are possibilities. The first one is the one I was going to use. And then I thought, well, maybe I should see what y'all wanted to do. Down here, this row are some of the pictures that I used last year during camp. And we could actually, I'm wondering about this baseball team because one of the topics that I think we're going to be looking at for summer is team building. So we may actually do the baseball team, I'm not sure. So I'm going to post these pictures in our Facebook group and let people vote on what they want the t-shirt logo, the logo for Summer Skills Camp 2.1 to be. So topics, we're going to do some team building and what? Let us know what you want to learn, what you want for your branch, for your position in the branch, for your personal edification, or any other thing that we can help you with and bring to you, again, in the online format for our Summer Skills Camp 2.1.
Nancy, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm excited. Ashland is beautiful, and there's a lot of different things to do there for enrichment tours. So I think it'll be a great way for us to start regenerating meeting in person again. And talking about that, in consultation with our AAUW Oregon Board of Directors and Kim Church's National CEO, we're issuing the following advices to all branches and branch members as we continue to navigate through COVID-19 pandemic issues over these next few months. Kim gave strongly worded advice with which we concur. You must follow your governor's and local health authorities' guidance. Our state laws, state and local laws supersede this in this time. As co-presidents of AAUW of Oregon, Pat and I strongly advise all of our branches to continue conducting virtual meetings until Governor Brown changes her directives. This would be interest groups as well. And I know as we're vaccinating that those will change, hopefully in structure a little bit as time goes on. Remember to vote, that is coming up. The town hall that Julia Brown did with us is recorded on YouTube. Another announcement, if you need any information or help in setting up virtual meetings, you can contact our State Technology Committee Zoom expert, Nancy Brown. Marie, did we have any other announcements?
Not a one came to me.
Okay. Okay. There's any further business? We bring to close the 96th State business meeting of the AAUW of Oregon. Thank you.
And thank you all for attending this meeting. We certainly hope that you have enjoyed our time together and look forward to our time together when we are really together physically and not just virtually. We are sure that you enjoyed Jessica's wonderful presentation, which I personally found very inspiring. And we hope that you appreciated the actions of our business meeting. Congratulations and thank you to all of you who have served AAUW of Oregon, to those who have worked so hard to facilitate our gathering, and to those of you who have participated today. Please come to our Tuesday celebration and awards event. It will be a rewarding experience for everyone, and it will be fun too. So in the meantime, be well, stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you all on Tuesday. Thank you.